Welcome back to the channel. My name is Steven. I'm a pharmacist and I own 54 units of real estate. So today I want to talk about why I am buying new construction in this market when interest rates are high. So I want to talk about that first, and I want to dive into why I bought new construction when interest rates were low. So with new construction, what's been really nice is a lot of the big builders like Lennar, D.R. Horton, these big national builders, they're basically getting really desperate to offload inventory because it's becoming a buyer's market. So interest rates are higher. It becomes harder for your typical person to afford a home. So as a result of that, the builders have excess inventory. And when the builders have excess inventory, what happens is they get a construction loan and they want to get rid of that construction loan as soon as possible to clear off their books because construction loans are a high interest rate of, probably 10% plus. So knowing that, usually, ideally, a builder like Lennar, the moment they start construction on a property, they want to know that it's pre-sold already to someone else. So that's how I was able to get like two really good deals from Lennar in Huntsville, and actually got my primary residence sitting right now. It's a Lennar home as well, in California. And what I've noticed for Lennar is that they're giving so many incentives right now. Like on my primary residence, which I bought back in, I think I closed June of 2024, they gave me $40,000 of builder credit. And I used that $40,000 of builder credit to upgrade my flooring. I used it to prepay my HOA for a year. I have two HOAs. I used it to cover my closing costs, and I used it to pay for my solar panels on my home. So it's pretty nice when you have such a large incentive. And what's kind of crazy too is that I bought this house for 900, but when I was looking at older townhomes in the same area, those homes would be listed for 850 in an older area. HOA was roughly 300 to 350. Mine's 500, so it's a little bit higher. But those older communities, they had no amenities whatsoever, like no pool, no gym, no park. It was just very bare bones, and the house would need 50 to $100,000 worth of renovation. And at that time, my wife and I didn't want to deal with renovations. We just want to move into a turnkey house and be good to go. So if you factor in the fact that we bought this for 900, but we got $40,000 of builder credit, it is actually better to like buy new construction. And I think on average, new construction averages 5% less than what's on the market because these builders, they're buying it, they're building it at a discount because they have economies of scale, and they just want to get rid of their inventory because builders like Lennar, they have weekly goals, monthly goals, quarterly goals, and end of year goals. So Lennar, for example, their end of year closes end of November. So if you're looking to buy a good deal, it's right now is the time to look at Lennar's inventory and make offers, right? If you can make a cash offer, even better. So on this house that I'm standing in, like buying new construction is super easy. You literally just submit an offer. It's first come, first serve. If you're lucky, you can have the option of choosing which lot you want to be on. Like if you want to be in this specific lot facing this way, you can kind of pick and choose what you want. But you literally just sign the contract, and if you get approved, you got the deal. It's like super easy. Like literally takes you like 20 minutes to get the deal. And you have to use Lennar's lender that they're partnered with in order to get the builder credit. So I had to use Lennar's lender, which ended up being Freedom Mortgage. So Lennar, what they do is they will basically underwrite you, give you the loan for a little bit, and then kick over your loan, sell it to another, mortgage company, right? So they sold my loan to Freedom Mortgage. So I think the first month or two, I was paying Lennar directly, but then after, 2 months, they kicked my loan over to Freedom Mortgage, who currently owns my loan. And what I could have done too, if I wanted to, was I could have used some of those points because I got $40,000 in builder credit. I could have used that to pay down my interest rate if I wanted to be a little bit lower. So decided not to do that because I knew I was probably going to refinance out of this anyways. I locked in. I put 5% down, 6.5% interest rate, bought it for 900K, put 50K down roughly. And that's how I basically got this deal, which I'm living in right now. Not the greatest investment, I would say, but it's a primary residence. So, different, I guess, criteria. But anyways, it was really easy to buy this deal. Like literally first come, first serve. You just got to qualify. You put like a $5,000 deposit. the deal is yours essentially. And so that's kind of on the primary side. On the rental side, what I did was I bought two in Huntsville, Alabama, in Athens, Alabama specifically. If you watch my channel, I've been talking about it quite a bit, but it's my Jack and Jill property is what I call it. So I bought this one. The first one I bought cash for about 250K, and the original price was 306K, and they dropped the price to about $300,000 um, because it was the end of the quarter sale. So it was a slight discount, right? Not too big. So I went from 306K, sorry, it's 295K. I forgot the numbers already. Then because I offered cash, they dropped the price down to like 256K. So I'm trying to do my lazy burr with this. And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to buy it cash, right, at a discount. So let's say it's worth 306K. I bought it for 256K. What I'm doing is I close in cash. Then after about 3 months of seasoning, I'm getting a lender in there to do a cash out refinance, 75% LTV based on the ARV. So in my case, the ARV came out to be 306, which was the original price. If we do 75% of that, my loan is 230K, but I put down about 260K cash. So I end up pulling out most of my money. I'm leaving $30,000 in the deal. So it's not a perfect burr, but the point of a burr is a little bit more leveraged, because you're trying to do a little down payment. If you do the math, it ends up being around what is that? Like an 8 to 10% down payment. So that's how I kind of view it. It's more of a leverage play. So I basically pull out money out of Jack, and then I'm gonna use that to funnel and pay for Jill. So that's how I'm kind of doing my strategy. And we'll see how it goes. But right now I'm leaving about 30K on average per deal. So it's about 8 to 10% down. So, it's not a perfect burr, but this requires no renovation, and it's super passive in that sense. So another thing, what's nice about new construction is that once again, it's first come, first serve. Like literally, you can go onto Lennar's website and you can see all the deals listed on the website. Like I can go into Huntsville, Alabama right now, see 26 different communities and see which deals are under construction. Usually it's a yellow light, what deals are currently there and done and being sold or being advertised. That's a green light. And then you can see which lots are pending. So, like I said, that list is pretty up to date. But what I do is I kind of check that inventory on a regular basis when I'm actively looking. And once I kind of find a community or two or three that I like, and how do I find the community? It's really my property manager telling me which areas rent out the best, and are at the most affordable pricing. So she recommended three communities. I think one was called Town Mills, one was Craft Springs, and one was Nature Coves West. So those are the three areas that I'm targeting. I bought two in Town Mills. I think those are the last two in that community. So that community is done. So it's a closeout community. They're building more Nature Coves West. So I've been monitoring that situation. They have some active right now in Craft Springs. So, those are the three areas I like. I typically target a 4-bedroom, 2-bath, 2,100 square feet because I know I can rent that out for $1 per square foot, which ends up being about, 2,150 to 2,200 is what I've been getting. And these are new construction, right? So, for me, since I'm paying cash, or cash is relative, right? It could be a line of credit. It could be a HELOC. It could be a line of credit against your stocks. You could be borrowing against your 401k. Just any way of getting a lump sum of money that you're dropping down, quote unquote cash, right? Or you just can have cash there. So basically, Lennar, from what I've seen, gives you about a 15 to 20% discount when you offer all cash. If you were to buy multiple all cash, you can probably ask for a steeper discount. So if I find a deal that I like, what I do is I have a Lennar rep that I'm working with that my realtor connected me with. And basically, I just call them up and said, hey, like, want to know about this property. This is kind of the price point I'm thinking about. Could you submit the offer for me and talk to, your manager? And what's kind of nice is because I bought two already, they kind of know like which price works for me. So my price point is around 260K, like all in cash, because I know that I can get a loan on it of 230, leave about 30K in the deal, rent it out for 2150 on average. And so far I've been getting like 3-year leases. So it's fortunate of me. But it's not too bad in that aspect, right? But so, once again, these new construction, they're cheaper than houses on the market. So it's kind of funny. If I were to list my older home, that I've owned since 2021. That's the first property I bought in Huntsville. Um, it would sell for more than when I'm buying as a new construction in Huntsville, Alabama. And that didn't make sense to me. I'm like, why would you buy an older home for a higher price when you can buy a new build at a cheaper price? But I guess people like specific areas and specific communities. But to me, it's just a no-brainer to go to like a new build community, or maybe people just don't want to deal with the renovation because you do. If you live there as a primary, like me, when I moved into this community, a lot of construction's going on, so I did hear it, and that's the inconvenience you have to deal with. But that's why they give you, these builder credits because you are dealing with construction and that inconvenience. But when you buy new construction, you're typically buying of instant equity. Like this house I bought for 900, it appraised at 925. My the ones I bought in Huntsville, they appraise a little bit higher than the original purchase price. So you are buying of instant equity. You do get 1 year warranties from Lennar. So if anything breaks, you just submit a request on their portal and they'll fix it. And you also have warranties on your roof, your plumbing, your electrical. So it's kind of nice, right? As a landlord or as your primary residence, you know that your major expenses are covered for. As an investor, you know that your major um, big ticket items are covered for. Like if I have issue with plumbing, if I have issue with electrical, the first thing my property is they engage with Lennar warranty. If they don't cover it, then I'll have to cover it myself. But usually that's kind of step process that you go through. And it's super easy to submit the request. You just go on the Lennar app, and then from there you just submit your request, and typically they respond within 1 to 2 days. So that's another advantage of buying a new construction property. Now, for those of you who are probably thinking, well, I don't have cash, I can't pay this house all cash. So Lennar, as I mentioned, they do partner, or these builders, they do partner with mortgage companies where I think at the time, if I put 25% down, which is reasonable in a new investment property, right? When you buy investment properties, you're typically going to put 25% down. But Lennar offered a product where I think they offered you like a 5.5 interest rate if you put 25% down. And that's pretty good in today's environment, right? To see a 5 in front of there, it's really good. So it's nice if you put 25% down. Let's just say you lock in a 5.5% interest rate because Lennar is probably using their builder credits to buy down your rate. You can just kind of set it and forget it. Like 5.5 is pretty decent. I never thought I would say that, but in today's environment or the past 3 years, a 5.5% interest rate is really good right now. So if you just can lock it in and then know your costs for 30 years and then know how much your rental income is, what your property management fees are, how much insurance is, how much property tax is, it's easy to underwrite your numbers, right? So for me, I'll tell you my numbers. My loan amount roughly is about $1,700 a month. Property management, property management is about 10%. HOA is $33 a month. The insurance through Steadily, who I partnered with, is about $850 per year, and then the property tax is $950 per year. So if you kind of do all that math, it's roughly I think $150 to $200 monthly cash flow, but I just call it break even because that cash flow is really there for a rainy day. If I have a vacancy, if I have to do some repairs, so it's kind of a break even deal, and I got it with not much money out of my own pocket, right? So it's a more leveraged strategy. Or like I said, if you're putting 25% down traditionally, and you're buying for 300, you're putting in, what is that, 75K down roughly. So you might be in $8,000 all in, if you include closing costs. You lock in a 5.5% interest rate on your loan of around, what is that? That's around 230K. And, basically you just can run your numbers and then you can set it and forget it. And like I said, these won't be home run deals. These are kind of like base hit deals. But what's also nice about buying new construction too is that usually these builders, they do a lot of research on where they're building, right? So they're investing a lot of money in areas I think that are growing, that are expanding, and that are in good school districts. So like where Lennar's building in Huntsville, that meets all that criteria. There's a lot of development there. There's a lot of space commands going there. The land is cheap. Property tax is relatively low. Insurance isn't too expensive. You have the average income in Huntsville, Alabama, because it's, the rocket capital, I believe. It's around 120K, which means that you're taking home probably $6,000 a month. And if your rent is only 2,000, that's about 1/3 of your take home pay. It goes to your rent, which is pretty reasonable, I would say. And I come from California where people spend 50, 60% of their take home pay just to afford rent or just to afford the mortgage. So I would say it's very reasonable. The school districts are really good there, so you don't have to go to private school. So yeah, and on top of that, it's pretty landlord friendly. Like I have one tenant right now where she didn't pay for the past 2 months. She gave my property management bad checks, so they bounced. And I didn't know that if you give someone a bad check with non-sufficient funds, that's actually a criminal offense. I didn't know that. That's what my property manager told me. So basically, we told the tenant like, "Hey, like, please, you owe us like let's say $4,000, which is 2 months of rent. Give us a good faith deposit, and then we'll work on a payment plan for you." And you have about 2 to 4 weeks to give that good faith deposit, and we'll set up a payment plan with you that works with you. And if you miss a payment, then we're going to send the district attorney after you. So we kind of just told her, if you don't give the good faith deposit, we're going to send the district attorney after you. And what they do is they'll typically garnish your wages, but they'll take half the money. So let's say they garnish your wages. You owe me 4,000. They take 4,000. The DA keeps 2,000. I get 2,000. And then now the credit score of that tenant is going to be ruined. It's going to be harder for them to rent out. So that's not what we want to do. But that's just kind of the leverage that we're using to get the tenant to work with us. And so hopefully, she does work with us. She said that she would go get emergency rental assistance. That's also a common program. And that program is going to pay, I think, the $4,000 that she owes. And then we'll create a payment plan with her moving forward for whatever she owes remaining, because she had to give a 60-day notice to oblige by the lease. So we'll work with her on that. But like I said, if she doesn't fulfill her part of the agreement, then we'll send the district attorney after her. So hopefully she does work with us. So my property manager was just saying that she sent me the property manager kind of copied me the text that she sent the tenant. And then, it's just kind of like radical candor. Like, hey, like if you leave the property and you trash the property, we're going to send the district attorney after you for the rents you owe plus the damages that you created. If you give us a good faith deposit and work with us, we won't go down that route. But those are kind of the two options. So hopefully, fingers crossed, she does go through with her agreement, what she said. But it was hard to kind of trust her. Being honest, my property manager said that, well, I have a hard time trusting her because 2 times she gave me a bad check that bounced and said that she would pay me, and she never kept her word. So it's really about trust. Like for me, I like to believe in the goodness of humankind, I would say. But I have been burned a lot. Once you've owned real estate long enough and been in the business, you do get burned, right? You do get burned by tenants, you get burned by property managers, you get burned by contractors, you get burned by lenders. It's just part of doing business, unfortunately. So like I said, I'll find out early next week if she makes her good faith deposit, and then from there I'll know which action to take. So either way, if I do have to send the district attorney after, unfortunately, I will document the journey because I've never been through this myself. So it's quite interesting to see that. And kind of side tangent, like when I bought in Alabama, I thought it'd be landlord friendly, but when I owned my mobile home park in Selma, Alabama, my property manager kept on telling me that it was hard to evict people, and it was based on one judge. And now that I'm thinking back, like that was probably an excuse to like not evict the tenant, or that was how the property manager was stealing money from me, right? Because like they just gonna say, well, this person didn't pay, claim they didn't pay, maybe their rent was 500, claim they didn't pay, and we can't evict the tenant. That's a great way for the property manager to steal $500 a month times, you know, whatever, 6 tenants, that's $3,000, right? Because I had a 70% collection rate on average, and they're just blaming the tenants. But it could have just been the property manager stealing from me. Now that I realize how easy it is to, basically leverage district attorney to go after somebody. So, like I said, interesting experience. They definitely, for that mobile home park, was stealing from me. The property manager was stealing from me. The on-site property manager, the off-site property manager, that was all sorts of stealing and incompetency. And it was on me too, because I decided to buy that deal. I vetted the property management, and that's how I got burned. But that's the cost of doing business. And like I said, you cannot go through real estate for as long as I have and not make any mistakes. If people tell you they don't make mistakes, they're probably lying, or they bought houses all cash. Like it's hard to make a mistake if you buy a house all cash, because if it's not rented, you don't have much expenses. So the only people who've never lost in real estate are probably those who bought all cash, or they're lying and hiding something. Because any real estate investor, you're going to go through bad times. You're going to have a tenant that trashes your property. You're going to have a tenant that doesn't pay. I've been through all the above, right? So, um, that's what's really key about having thick skin if you go into real estate. But anyways, going back to new construction, sorry for that huge side tangent. Um, but with new construction, like I said, it's less competitive to buy. It's first come, first serve. You need 25% down. You can use a builder credit to buy down your interest rate. Or if you buy cash, you can get a nice discount. Um, Usually you're buying up into equity day one. And as they build more and more phases, ideally the value of the property should be going up each phase. So for example, if you bought in phase one for 400K, phase two might be 405K, phase three might be 410K, phase four might be 415K. And once that community is done, it creates scarcity. And that's when the value of those homes will skyrocket, right? But the key of new construction is that you must hold to the property long enough so that it does appreciate in value. So for example, for me right now, I'll give my house an example. They built out half the community. They're building the other half right now. Like if I were to list my home on the market, I think it's gonna be hard for me to sell it because why would you buy my home that's, used for a year and a half when you can buy the same exact home, maybe like, a couple blocks away from here and get it brand new, pick your flooring, pick your backsplash, pick your finishes. The only person who wouldn't want to deal with that is somebody who just doesn't want to be around the construction, right? But to me, I'm like, that's a no-brainer. I'd rather pick my customizations, have warranty, but that's just me, right? People have different priorities, but that's how I kind of think of it. So for me, in order for this value to go up, this home to go up, I need to wait till everything's being done, being built, and then I sell it. So that's kind of um, the way that I'm thinking about it as I buy new construction. So to me, it's a long-term play. And like I said, it's easy to rent out new construction because what's there not to like? It's literally a brand new community. Everything's brand new, has a new house smell, new cabinets, new quartz countertops, modern layouts. Typically, if there's an HOA, there's amenities like there might be a pool, there might be a gym, there might be a dog park. It's a certain like people living around you. It's obviously if it's a new community, it's a more affluent demographic. So you have people who are homeowners, you have people who are renting who can afford that higher rent. So it's just a different feeling. And it's usually, from my experience, these like communities are like more like younger new families. So, they're around my age in their mid 30s. Maybe they just had a first kid, maybe they're planning to have a kid. That's kind of the vibe of these new communities. And obviously, like during Halloween, which is like coming up, it does very, very well because it's all kids. If it's gated, it's safe. So that's why I really like new construction, right? So like, and these are in A-class areas of A-class tenants. So that's been kind of my experience with buying new construction. It's been really interesting seeing it. Like I am looking to buy more potentially. Like I am slowing down a little bit, but if I do sell my 20-unit apartment complex, good chance if I do want to sell it and do a 1031 exchange, I'm going to use that to go buy maybe 2 or 3 or 4, depending on how much I sell my apartment for, new construction deals. And then at that point, I'd own about 7 new construction in Huntsville, Alabama. And from there, it's just hoping to see that market appreciate over time. I am banking on the fact that Space Command is going to Huntsville, so I'm hoping that it brings a lot of good jobs there. I think it's gonna bring around 1,500 jobs over the next 5 years, and it's going to attract people who are like high up in Space Command, so they can typically afford that $2,000 to $2,200 a month in rent. They're going to want a single family home, ranch style with a nice backyard. So if they have pets, it's very pet friendly, and people who want backyard, for the kids to play around, it's very ideal. So that's the kind of the home I'm targeting. And like I said, so far, like I leased out my first property on a 3-year lease for 2150. I have another property that I'm going to close on in mid to end of November, and then we're hoping to get a tenant to also sign another 3-year lease on that one before it's even done being built. So it is the holiday season coming up. Typically harder to rent out during the holiday season. So if that's the case, I'm okay because I'm buying it cash. So I'm just going to leave my cash there. I don't have much expenses besides property tax, which is prorated, and then you have to pay insurance, which I front load, but it's not too much to do that. So that's really, really kind of the strategy that I'm doing. So I may, like I said earlier, own maybe about 7 of these if I do a 1031 exchange. Or if I just want to pay the taxes on my 20 unit, I can take that money and then go build my 2 ADUs on one of my properties in Orange County. Talked about that a little bit yesterday, but I think conceptually it kind of ties in with new construction and with ADUs. So kind of side tangent to ADUs. What's kind of nice about ADU is that you already have the land, right? So you already own the property. I have a home there that's being rented out, and I have a nice big backyard of 7,500 square foot. So I can comfortably build 1,000 square foot, 3 bedroom, 2 bath in the backyard, single family or single story, and I can convert the garage to a 400 square foot, 1 bedroom, 1 bath. And I think all in cost is going to be about 420K. And I just contacted a company called Renovate to see my lending options. So what they allow you to do is they allow you to do a second position loan. So they allow you to do a HE loan, which is basically a second position loan. So my first position loan is 2.75%. And I do not want to give that up, right? I think no one would want to give that up. But if I can get a HE loan at, let's just call it 8%, I can pull that money out as a lump sum. Let's just say I pull out probably $200,000 at 8%. My monthly payment's roughly going to be about $1,500. But once I finish renovation, I can rent those two out for about $6,200 total. The 1 bedroom rents for $2,500. The 3 bedroom in the back rents for $3,700, which is $6,200 collectively. So that's pretty lucrative in that sense, right? So that's a good number where you're making about $4,000 in cash flow. You can use that extra $4,000 to then do that to pay down your loan faster, right? So that's one option that Renovate offers. So I'm trying to see what their points are and how much they charge for fees. I'm expecting it to be higher, but they also have a HELOC in second position as well. Same thing. It's a variable interest rate. You're going to pay fees. Your interest rate's probably going to be like 10% plus. It's going to be variable. So it can go up and down depending on the market. So that's another option. And what's nice about Renovate is that they'll actually base your HELOC not on the current value, which is what most HELOC and HE loan providers do. So if your home is worth $1.2 million today and your loan is 600, they look at those two numbers to give you your HE loan in second position or your HELOC in second position. But Renovate, they actually look at the ARV of your home and give you a HE loan in second position or HELOC in second position based off of the ARV. So you're able to get more money to do your renovation. And why that's nice is because with ADUs, just because you spend $400,000 to build an ADU doesn't necessarily mean that your value of your home will increase by $400,000. A lot of times you're getting 50 cents on the dollar. So if I'm spending $400,000 for an ADU, it might only increase the value of my main home by $200,000, right? Unless there's sales comps supporting that by having two ADUs, it's worth, let's just say, 2 million. In which case, if my house is worth 1.2 million, I put $400,000 to fix it up or to build two ADUs. I'm all in for 1.6, and it's worth 2 million. That's almost doing a perfect BRRRR. So that's kind of how I view it at. So I'm like, that's not too bad. But for me, I'm not banking on the fact that it's going to have a good ARV. This is more of a cash flow play for me. If I do get a higher ARV, that's a cherry on top, right? So I'll see how Renovate is. I'll keep you guys posted. I literally, before this live, reached out to them. They called me during the live. I didn't pick up. So after the live is done, I'm going to reach out to them to see how their HELOC looks and how their HE loan looks, because it is very unique that they will factor in the second position based on the new ARV, right? But typically they're going to charge probably more points. That's what I'm guessing, or a higher interest rate, or a combination of the above. So, once again, when I built this new construction, this one I have more control over. Obviously, I'm going to try to make it very nice. They position the windows in a way where you don't see the main house. You can do a little fence. You can do a little walkway. You can make the roof pitched so it feels taller. You can add a skylight to make it more spacious, more sunlight. So there's a lot of things that you can do to make this unit look very nice and look better than your typical apartment complex, which is what I'm competing with. So, with new construction, it's something that I've been really liking. I don't have the balls, for lack of a better word, to do my own new construction yet, but that might be something I consider once I finish going through my ADUs. And if I see that process and if I enjoy that process, maybe I'll consider doing it, because typically if you build right and you rent it out yourself, you can build some instant equity, but you are dealing with a headache, right? Like you are going to deal with the headache of doing the whole construction from start to finish. Versus if you just buy something in Lennar, it's cookie cutter. You don't do any headache. You just close on the loan and you move on to your life, right? So that's how I'm trying to balance those two. So, to kind of summarize this before I go to your questions, thanks for your questions. Why I like new construction in a high interest rate environment is because number one, it's a buyer's market. You can get nice discounts, right? Like if you think the housing market is going to drop 15%, then just offer 15% less than what their asking price is. You can negotiate with Lennar. Lennar, depending on their situation, if it's end of the quarter, they're more desperate. If it's end of the year, they're more desperate. If it's end of their month, they're desperate. If they just want to finish the community, they're desperate. So you're thriving on Lennar's desperation and Lennar's willingness to just want to move inventory. Because Lennar, they stopped building as fast because it's the holiday season and they just want to get rid of their current inventory. So once they get rid of current inventory, that means that their loan amount goes down and their debt goes down. So they're trying to control their debt. And I imagine for November, December, January, it's going to slow down significantly. But once spring hits, like February, March, April, Lennar is going to start building a lot, right? They're going to start building a lot to get there. So once that happens, there'll be less supply, and then maybe Lennar may not budge as much on pricing. So that's why I'm like so desperately trying to like buy a lot of deals from Lennar because I know they're desperate, and this window may be small, right? So that's what's nice about buying new construction in high interest rate environments. And also, like I said, you get a lot of builder credits. You can use it to buy down your interest rate to 5% interest rate or 5.5% interest rate. You could use the fact that you have warranties to lower your capex. Renters love a new construction property because they're the first person to live in that property. You have nice backyards, a nice community. There's amenities. Usually you're buying new construction of instant equity. It's first come, first serve. So it's not like a crazy bidding war. Like I remember at the peak of COVID, like I would literally submit an offer sight unseen on a property in Orange County, and you'd have 30 other offers. And then it just becomes countering each other. Like I offered 800, someone offers 820, someone offers 840, someone offers 850, someone offers 900. Right? You just keep on bidding and bidding and bidding. But if new construction, it's first come, first serve. That's it. Whoever gets a contract first and puts the $5,000 deposit first, the deal is yours. So it's easy, right? It's just speed. It's just speed and picking the deal. And even I found that the same with like when interest rates were high or low, to be honest. Like during COVID, I bought new construction in Huntsville and I hated the bidding wars. It was so competitive. But with new construction, first come, first serve. The deal comes up, you lock it down, you're good. So that's kind of why I like new construction. And you don't have to worry about the roof for a long time. You don't have to worry about the HVAC for a long time. You don't have to worry about the AC, the electrical, the plumbing for a long time. And CapEx can kill your deal, right? That's what's happening to my 20 unit. My 20 unit CapEx is killing me right now because you have plumbing issues, you have HVAC issues, you have toilet issues for 20 units. So, if you can mitigate that with a newer home with a tenant that hopefully stays there for a long time, that's how you really control your CapEx. You control your vacancies. So thanks for listening for that rant. Let me dive into some questions now. So please drop your questions and I'll start answering them. So first question I see is, Stephen, I have a $1.1 million loan with 11% rate. Rent, PTI is a gap of 4K. I'm putting from my pocket. Who would be a good lender to refi to a low rate? My DTI is too high and property has unpermitted ADU. Ooh, that's a tough situation. At 11%, I'm assuming you're doing a bridge debt or you have a hard money loan. And you're negative $4,000 a month. They are kind of like, you're probably going to go a non-QM lender to look at your situation because a lot of them will look at the debt service coverage ratio, but some lenders do not look at the debt service coverage ratio, but you're going to pay a higher interest rate to do that. So honestly, I would reach out to probably multiple mortgage brokers. Not sure what state. I assume that loans in California being that high of a price. But I would check out Velocity Mortgage. I would reach out to some mortgage brokers who work with investors to see if you can get a product where they don't qualify you based on your debt to income ratio. They might qualify you based on like your assets, based on your income. I'm assuming you have a good income if you can float a negative $4,000 a month in cash flow. So, you have to go basically kind of the non-QM route, get a little creative with that loan. But yeah, that's a tough situation to be in. One of my properties I bought that I leveraged to the hill, It is negative $4,000 a month, and I am renting it under market rent because it's rented out to like family. So, obviously I can't charge that much. And I did know that I was going to strip a lot of equity out of that deal to go buy other deals, which hopefully will fund that negative $4,000 a month. And it has been. But generally speaking, you don't want bad deals that are negative cash flow. They're called alligators. You can't scale with multiple alligators. So yeah, I'd reach out to Velocity Mortgage and a bunch of real estate brokers to see if they can help you and find you a more creative product, given that situation. But I think you can do better than 11%. That seems really high. Um, AJ, have you considered a loan against your stock portfolio? I heard you can get loans of Fidelity at 5% or under. So I do have a line of credit through Charles Schwab. Um, I could check out Fidelity, but Charles Schwab has a pledged asset line of credit, and they kind of quoted me about 8%, but it depends on how much assets you have with Charles Schwab. So if you have like $1 million, obviously interest rates could be lower. If you have $2 million, even lower. But the bare minimum you need to have is, I think, 250 to half a million, which is closer to the range that I'm in. And I kind of saw the rate to be around 8%. So obviously it's still cheaper than like a HELOC, which is around 10%. And there's no fees associated with that. So it's something that I do have, and I'm probably am going to use if I decide to do the ADU. So for the ADU, I'm probably going to do half cash and then half line of credit against my stocks, unless this Renify is good and I decide to use them, in which case I just can use Renify to fund it all. So, that's something that I do have. So I do use that as my emergency fund. So that I don't want to sell my stocks. I want to keep that to diversify. And it's liquid, which is nice. So I use a line of credit against it for a rainy day if I have to do a major repair and I don't have enough cash. So that's kind of my emergency fund that I hope not to tap into. So another question here from SKREI. Property is valued only at 930K underwater and loan is 1.1 million. Would you sell or hold for long-term appreciation? It's in the Bay Area, California. I'm curious as to where in the Bay Area that is. Um, yeah, that's a tough situation. Is it an Airbnb? I hope it's not an Airbnb because I know a lot of people went to Airbnb. They had good months or good year, and they got loans based on the income that Airbnb is generating. Right. So, like, for example, if normally this house is only worth $1 million based on sales comps of what your neighbor's house sells for, well, a lot of Airbnb people are doing is they're getting commercial loans based on debt service coverage ratio, and based on your income or your NOI, they're evaluating the property higher. So maybe as a single family home, based on sales comps, it's worth $1 million, but based on the Airbnb and based on the income that it did for the past year, maybe it's worth $2 million, and now you're pulling out 75% LTV of that. So your loan's a lot higher. But if the Airbnb doesn't work and convert it to a long-term rental, then you're underwater, right? So that's how a lot of Airbnb investors um, are getting burned, right? But thanks for clarifying. It's a long-term tenant. It's in south of San Francisco. So interesting. I do own in San Francisco as well, on the border of Daly City in San Francisco near SF State. The values in SF, it's based on tech from my experience, right? So when tech is doing great, the values in San Francisco skyrocket. But obviously in the past, 2 years, a lot of layoffs in tech. It's very volatile. It's not doing so great. But I do think tech is rebounding with AI. Like Nvidia's skyrocketing. So a lot of people got laid off, but a lot of people, that I know that live in the Bay Area still that in tech, they got laid off, but they got found new jobs. So I would say if you can just hold that property long enough for the next tech boom, and then once tech is really hot, you won't be underwater anymore. At that point, you consider selling it. But that is a hard situation. Hopefully, you're renting it out so that you're at least breaking even. I know on my property in San Francisco, I'm probably making about $1,000 a month. It's a duplex, a makeshift duplex. In San Francisco, where the bottom unit is separate. It's not a legal duplex; it's a makeshift duplex. But I'm renting the top unit for about $5,100, and then the bottom unit for $2,900 for $8,000 a month. But I have to pay utilities. But the utilities are crazy. Like the tenants are, I think the PG&E bill is like, the electricity bill is like $600 a month, and the water bill is like $400 a month. But it's still worth it because I'm getting way more rents versus if I were to rent out the whole home by itself. So, hopefully Um, basically from there, you hold into it long term, right? So like that's the game of tech, especially like San Francisco. It's super volatile based on tech, but I do think tech is going to blow up and do well or boom, not blow up, but boom for the next probably 5 years with AI, unless AI goes bust. So to me, I would say you could hold on to that long term, but I'm hoping that you are at least cash flow neutral in that deal. If you're cash flow negative, um, at that point, it's your decision if you want to just sell it and then take a nice loss against your W-2 income or your business income. But I am optimistic about the Bay Area, going up again, specifically San Francisco. So, for me, I still hold my property in San Francisco, but luckily I'm cash flow positive. So I'm not in as tough a situation. Um, so E-Trade as a company. So yeah, not all companies allow you to borrow against your stocks. I know for sure Charles Schwab does that. A guy who has a bunch of stock through Google introduced me to Charles Schwab. So I transferred all my Vanguard into Charles Schwab to then get a line of credit against that as an emergency fund. So it was a good option. Um, if you are looking in a new area with no contacts, is there a resource you use to find good agents and property managers? So for me, it's word of mouth and referrals. So what you want to do is if you want to invest in like Huntsville, Alabama, for example, you want to find somebody who invests in Huntsville, Alabama, and then reach out to who they're using for their property manager, who they're using as their realtor, right? That's what I did for Oklahoma. That's what I did for Huntsville, Alabama, and I actually found my Huntsville, Alabama property manager slash realtor through Bigger Pockets. I just posted on the forum saying, hey, I'm looking to invest in Huntsville, Alabama. If there's any realtors out there or property managers out there, I would love to talk to you to learn about the market. And then ended up talking to multiple, found one that I liked. So I gave it a try with her. And then it's worked out for me so far. I have one deal with her for 5 years. It's been decent besides this one bad tenant. And now she's helping me buy two more, Jack and Jill. And then she rented out Jack pretty fast, and then Jill's still being built. So hopefully that gets rented out sooner. But it's really just word of mouth and referrals is the best way to go, right? And hopefully you want to use someone like me, for example. I've used my property manager before, so I can tell you the pros and cons of this property manager. And same with my Oklahoma City property manager. I know what they're good at. I know what they're bad at, and I've worked with them so far for like 5 years. So it's just getting referrals is the best way to do anything in real estate, to be honest. Whether it's a lender, a loan officer, a mortgage broker, a contractor, a realtor, property manager, you need a strong team, right? And referrals is the way to go, to be honest. So SKREI reached out to Velocity Mortgage already, but they only do 75% of LTV. So I need to bring 400K to table to do it. Alternate way to bring 400K to the table. Oh, yeah, that is tough. So like I said, I would keep on reaching out to different lenders to see what your options are, because each lender has a different appetite for real estate. So I would just keep on reaching out to as many lenders as possible, and probably reach out to mortgage brokers because they typically can get loans at wholesale pricing, but you typically have to pay more fees for that. So, you just have to keep on reaching out. Like it takes persistence to reach out to multiple lenders, and you can see what your options are. So that's a tough position. But yeah, just reach out to more lenders to do that. Another question is, would you say you're able to grow your portfolio through appreciation from California properties, capital recycling, or savings from a good income to bring the down payments to make purchases? Or savings from good income to bring down. Okay, got it. Question. Sorry, it took me a while to process that question. I don't know why. It's Sunday morning, right before football. I'm a 49ers fan, for better or for worse. Um, watch them lose 3 Super Bowls. Anyways, so California, so I started investing in California, right? Because I'm from California. I only knew to invest in my backyard. That's the furthest I got. So in California, it only worked because I house hacked the property. I locked in a 3% interest rate on average, which is impossible now. And I put 10% down, 3% interest rate. I lived in a master bedroom, and then I rented out the other 3 other bedrooms to basically lower my living expense. Right? That's how basically I got started in my journey. And the problem with this is that a lot of times you're cash flow negative. Like my first deal that I bought, I put 10% down, 4% interest rate, $800,000. between property tax, HOA, the mortgage, and everything, I was negative $500 a month. But I didn't mind being negative $500 a month because I had a high income W-2 as a pharmacy manager, as a pharmacy director, making over $200,000, right? But you cannot scale a portfolio where each deal you're buying is negative $400 a month. There's no way to scale that. You're tied to your job forever. So, for me, over time, what happened? So I had a 4% interest rate. COVID happened. I refinanced it to a 3.1% interest rate, saved me $300 a month. Simultaneously, it's been 2 years. I raised the rents by $200 a month. So now it's a break even deal. And for me, that's the best you can do in California, to be honest. Is like you break even unless you're willing to put such a large down payment. And for me, when you're getting started, I can't afford to put a large down payment because I'm just working a W-2. I'm trying to save money, right? Like even for me, saving $100,000 is hard enough. I can't imagine trying to save 200, 300. It's take me 3 times as long, right? And by then, the price of the home might have skyrocketed, which it did. So when you buy in California, like your best case scenario, unless you just have loads of money because you're like a doctor, own a business, like your best case is you're breaking even and you're self-managing the deal. But if you're able to do that, these are properties appreciate like crazy. From 2017 to 2022, my property went from $800,000 up to $1.4 million. That's $600,000 of market appreciation doing absolutely nothing. I did absolutely nothing. Same tenant that's living there, just do repair requests, made $600,000 doing nothing, right? Like that's way more than you'll make in like Huntsville, Alabama, where I also invest. So if you're able to play that game, it's good. But just know that it's more of an appreciation play. And once you made a lot of appreciation, you have options, right? I could do a 1031 exchange. I could sell my first home I bought in the Bay Area, do a 1031 exchange into a cash flow market like Huntsville, Alabama. But I know, but knowing that it's not going to appreciate as fast. So let me share this example. So my home in the Bay Area, East Bay, rents for only $4,000 a month. Bought for 800. It's worth 1.4 million today. I just bought Jack and Jill in Huntsville, Alabama. Each home was let's just call it 250 each. That's half a million total. The rent for those is $4,200 a month, which is higher than my property in the Bay Area for 1/3 the cost. So that's why I went to Huntsville, Alabama, because I get higher rents and it's not going to appreciate as much, right? So that's the downside. Like I'm not going to get, $600,000 appreciation, but that's how you kind of balance your portfolio, right? Where I have some in California, which is all appreciation. I have something in Oklahoma, which is all cash flow, no appreciation. And I have some in Huntsville, Alabama, which I call a hybrid market, where it's a little cash flow, a little appreciation. So that's why I'm buying a lot in Huntsville, right? So I can easily just 1031 exchange my first property that's worth $1.4 million today, use that to go buy 4 properties, no, excuse me, 5 properties, of which, of those 5, 2 or 3 will be owned free and clear, and the other 3 will have a decent down payment on them of at least 25%. So that's how I can increase my cash flow significantly by taking that equity and then mobilizing it, right? So if I own 3 in Huntsville free and clear, each one would cash flow $1,800 each, right? So I think that would be about like almost $5,000 plus in cash flow from just those 3, and then the other 3 would probably cash flow, call it 300 each. So that's another $1,000. That's almost $6,000 in positive cash flow. Gross wise, it'd be like closer to 10,000. So that's what a lot of people do. They start off in California, 1031 exchange it, use that appreciation, the equity into cash flow. But then a lot of times too, what people do is once you own too much in Huntsville, Alabama, they sell all that. Let's say I have like 20 or 40 in Huntsville, Alabama, to sell all that and then turn those change it back into California, right? So it's kind of a weird game that like I started off in California, I left California for more cash flow, but then once I built up my net worth and I built up more money and other streams of income, I ended up selling these and going back into California because California is the strongest appreciation market. And if you can afford to like break even and you can play that long-term game, or you have a bunch of income coming from your business or something else, then that's the game that you're playing. You'll make a lot more wealth going that way, but you're not going to make as much cash flow. So it depends what game you're playing. Are you trying to just build wealth and you don't mind working and you make a lot of money? Or do you want cash flow so that you can not work and retire early? That's kind of what I'm leaning towards. So that's why I'm doing Huntsville, Alabama. But if my YouTube somehow blows up and I make millions from YouTube, then by all means, I'll just continue buying in California again, because I know long term, California is going to make me more wealth versus Huntsville, Alabama. So it really depends on what your goal and strategy is, and it's okay to like change your mind later, right? Like I started off in California, went to Huntsville in Oklahoma, and then maybe if I make a bunch of money from YouTube or whatever, I could take that money, sell my properties in Oklahoma and Huntsville, and then buy back in California where it has more appreciation potential because people want to live here because of the jobs and the weather and the lifestyle. I mean, there's pros and cons of California. So that's how I kind of view it, and that's why I own in 3 markets. So to summarize all that, California, um, it's all appreciation, no cash flow, right? But appreciation will make you wealthy, but it won't pay the bills. Oklahoma is no appreciation, all cash flow. So my 26 unit cash flow $6,000 a month, right? But it's not going to really appreciate any further. My in Huntsville, Alabama, it's a hybrid market where I still can cash flow and it's still going to appreciate a little bit, right? But it's more of a hybrid. So that's why I invest in all 3, and I'm focusing a lot more in that hybrid market right now because I want a little bit of both. So that's how I kind of view it as. But to save for my down payment, that's all W-2 income. So it's literally just job hop to make more money, live frugally, house hack, live at home if you could. Like find ways to use points to travel. Don't live a super lavish lifestyle, don't get a new car. Like you just have to be very frugal, and then you save your money, and then you buy properties 10% down, you'll feel broke again. You save another 10% down, you'll feel broke again. So that's just the joy of doing real estate. Like you're constantly feeling broke buying real estate. But that's just the journey you have to go through if you want to build wealth and if you want to, retire early, which is my goal. Right. So to kind of summarize that, like I made most of my net worth from California, and I basically did a huge cash out refinance on my real estate portfolio in California to then use that to buy a bunch of my 26 unit apartment complex, my 20 unit apartment complex, my mobile home park, which I sold for a loss. And I self funded my renovation because I just pulled the money out of my California properties. So I couldn't have bought these cash flowing assets if it's not for the appreciation from California. SK Real Estate, just send me an email. Just click on my link tree, and then my email is in there. Just send me an email, and I can connect you with a few brokers and lenders that I've worked with in the past to see some options. Ed Chang, oh, I guess you're a Niner fan too. Cool, cool. Another question is, can some lenders do a second loan of 400 even for a high rate? At least first loan will be a lower rate. So yeah, this is called a HE loan or a HELOC. So I'm trying to get quoted a HE loan or HELOC right now. But if you're underwater by 400K, that might be difficult to do that, honestly. So, but the HE loan, the HELOC in second position, it's actually very favorable for me because I have a lot of trapped equity, and I don't want to get my low interest rate of like 4% and less. So for me, I don't mind getting a second position. It's roughly going to be about 8 to 10%. You're probably going to pay about 1 to 2 points on it. If you're doing a HELOC, same thing, 1 to 2 points. Your interest rate's probably going to be 10 plus. And that's kind of the fees that I've been seeing, right? So I got a non-QM loan through Ameritrust, and Convoy Home Loans connected me over Ameritrust. And basically, I have to pay about, I think $10,000 in closing costs for a 250K loan. And I think Convoy pockets about 4,000 or 5,000 of that, which is typical if you get a broker involved. And then about $6,000 in fees to Ameritrust. And my interest rate for for a cash out refinance was 6.875. So cash out refinances will be a higher interest rate. If you do a rate and term refinance, you're gonna have a lower rate. So it's probably gonna be, probably maybe 6.5. If you're doing a purchase, you're gonna have a lower interest rate. So it just depends who you're doing with. But for me, there's a lot of non-QM lenders out there. But the 2 that I've been kind of working with for my cash out refinance are Lending One and Ameritrust. So if you want those connections, click on my link tree below. You can see links to Lending One to work with my loan officer that I've been using, and then Ameritrust. Just send me an email as well, and I can connect you with who I use for Ameritrust. So that's what I've been kind of seeing. So to kind of summarize, a cash out refinance, I'm probably seeing like a 6.5 to 6.8, depending on what you're doing, and about 1 to 2 points is what I'm seeing on average. If you're doing a HE loan or a HELOC in second position, about 1 to 2 points. 8% interest rate for a HE loan, 10% for a HELOC in second position. So, not too terrible. And you can keep your first, position loan untouched. So that's the advantage of the HE loan. That's the advantage of the HELOC. But if your interest rate's not that great, then you can consider just doing a normal, refinance to get out of that deal. Um, so thanks for the questions. Approaching the hour here. So just give a quick plug. If you want to join my school community on a free trial, click on my link down below. I also have courses and coaching if you're interested. If you want to send me an email, my email is also in the link tree. I convert a lot of my policies over to Steadily Landlord Insurance. Click on the link. It takes you like 3 minutes to do it. You can see if your policy is cheaper or if Steadily can give you a more competitive rate. During this time, when times are tough, I've been focused on like minimizing my expenses, and insurance has been one thing I've been minimizing, to be honest. So I think by converting 3 of my policies to Steadily, I saved about $1,500, which adds up, right? And then on my 26 unit, I converted my policy from replacement cost to actual cost, and that went from $30,000. Believe it or not, I was paying $30,000 for insurance on my 26 unit, and I dropped it down to around $9,000. So that's the downside of apartments, is insurance costs so much money, right? Like literally a new construction home, my $1 million home, it cost me like $1,500 to get insurance, but my apartment complex, which is worth like, let's say less than $1 million, you have to spend like $9,000 to $15,000 for insurance because there's more risk, right? Because you have more tenants, more kitchens, and more stoves, more potential for fire. So I've been really focused on like minimizing my expenses. Insurance is a big one, and I've been focused on making sure that my rents are not too far below market, right? So if my rents are like, let's say my rent's 4,000, but market is 4,500. I want to make sure that my rent is not too below market. So I might raise it to like 4,200. So I'm still $300 cheaper than market because I want to keep my tenant, but I also want to make sure I don't fall too far behind. And like I said, property tax is going up, insurance is going up. So I have to raise this cost just to kind of break even in my mind. So it's just really about being cognizant about your expenses. So anyways, hopefully you found value from this live. Please check out my other videos. I post every day at 8 a.m. I'm looking to do more lives in the future, but I'm going out of the country for the next 2 weeks, so I won't do it for a while. But once I'm back in like, mid-November, I'll probably do more lives. But if you have a topic you want me to talk about in a live, send me an email, send me a DM. I'm open-minded. But I love answering you guys' questions and interacting with you guys. Makes it more interesting than just me, talking to a screen. So anyways, please like, comment, subscribe, and hope to see you in the next one. Thank you so much.